Welcome to the Razors Inc. podcast with your host, Jonathan Farini. On last week's podcast, Jonathan analyzed one of Ethan and Joel Coen's finest and darkest films, No Country for Old Men. But immediately after going to publication, Jonathan had more thoughts about the movie, and those thoughts deserve some attention. So pour yourself a drink, pull up a chair, and hear Jonathan's take on movies, television, and today, part 2 of our closer look at No Country for Old Men. Here's your host, Jonathan Farini.
You can't really watch No Country for Old Men the way you watch most movies because you experience it. It's something closer to being followed, or, for lack of a better word, hunted. It was released in 2007 by Joel Coen and Ethan Coen and adapted from Cormac McCarthy's novel, which really strips away any comfort. There's no score guiding your emotions, no release valve. It's just tense, it's quiet, and it has consequence. At the center of it is Anton Chigurh, played with chilling stillness by Javier Bardem. He's not just a hitman, he feels like something older, meaner, something of the ages, something elemental, almost belongs on the periodic table under toxic chemicals. You get the sense he doesn't arrive, he appears. He's a force that's always there, just waiting to step into your path with that blowgun to the forehead.
Howdy. What's this about?
Step out of that car, please, sir.
What is that?
I need you to step out of that car, sir.
What is that for?
Would you hold still, please, sir?
There's a moment, or rather a feeling, where you realize he's less a man than an idea. Get this, fate with a pulse. And in that way, he calls to mind that stark figure of death walking the shoreline in The Seventh Seal out of Ingmar Bergman's quiet, questioning world, where the silence of God hangs in the air and death doesn't rage or judge. It only arrives so that no matter how far you run inland, the tide still comes in. This is what I get paid for. I've had a battle with that film since my film school days. And then there's Sheriff Ed Tom Bell, played by Tommy Lee Jones. He's the opposite of Chigurh, isn't he, in almost every way? How could he not be? Where Chigurh moves forward, Bell reflects. Where Chigurh is certain, Bell is uncertain. He's a lawman who senses the world's slipping beyond his understanding. You could, now this is what I get paid for, if you wanted, briefly compare him to Andy Taylor, that older television ideal of a sheriff who knew his town, who could resolve things with a conversation on a porch and no sidearm around his belt. But Bell lives in a different America now, one where the porch is empty and conversations don't work anymore.
I was sheriff of this county when I was 25 years old. My grandfather was a lawman, father too. Some of the old-time sheriffs never even wore a gun. A lot of folks find that hard to believe. Jim Scarborough never carried one. That's the younger Jim. Gaston Boykins wouldn't wear one up in Comanche County. Couldn't help but wonder how they'd operated these times. There's this boy I sent to the electric chair at Huntsville here a while back. He killed a 14-year-old girl. Told me that he'd been planning to kill somebody for about as long as he could remember. Said if they turned him out, he'd do it again. Said he knew he was going to hell. Be there in about 15 minutes. The crime you see now, it's hard to even take its measure. It's not that I'm afraid of it. I always knew you had to be willing to die to even do this job. But I don't want to push my chips forward and go out and meet something I don't understand.
The film was critically acclaimed, winning 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Supporting Actor for Bardem. But awards don't really explain the movie's power to me. What pulls me in is the stillness, the way it forces me to sit with dread, the way violence arrives not as a spectacle, but as an interruption. It's always sudden, it's quiet, but boy, is it final. And what it says about the American West is unsettling. Listen, this isn't the mythic frontier of heroes and outlaws of John Ford and John Wayne. This is the after image. The land's the same, it's wide open, it's indifferent, it's tough, but the moral framework is gone. Or maybe it was never there to begin with. Think about that one. If you place it beside The Last Picture Show, see my podcast by the same title, directed by Peter Bogdanovich, you begin to see the evolution of that emptiness in the West. The Last Picture Show isn't violent in the way No Country for Old Men is. There's no Anton Chigurh moving through it like a force of nature. Instead, there's absence, a slow fading. It's a town drying up under its own weight. That metaphor where the movie theater closes and the streets empty out and the people who remain feel like they're living after the story has already ended.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, seen it here before once. Hey, why don't we run over to Wichita and drink a little beer, huh?
Okay. I got lots of time till morning.
Sure.
Well, so long, Miss Mosey.
Sorry you're closing the show.
Nobody wants to come to shows no more. Kid baseball in the summer, television all the time. Sam had lived. I believe we could have kept it going. But I just didn't have the know-how.
Won't be much to do in town with the picture show closed.
Yeah.
Well, so long.
Dwayne, you watch out now overseas.
But that's exactly the point of the connection, in my opinion. The Last Picture Show, the West is already losing its meaning, its vitality, its sense of any future. The characters aren't hunted. They're simply left behind. Time moves and they don't. See, the tragedy is quiet, almost tender, but no less final. And I'm thinking of that young man, Billy, with the learning disability, who gets run over in the end.
Never had no sense. Hell no, mister, I'd say that.
He was just a dumb old kid. Never was good.
Didn't know enough to keep his ass out of the cold. Morning like this, let's go to the cafe. All right, I ain't had no breakfast.
I'd still like to know what he was doing lugging that broom around this time of day.
He was sweeping, you sons of bitches! He was sweeping!
What a metaphor. The black and white cinematography that Bogdanovich used, in my opinion, was a protagonist for the life and death of that film. Had that film been shot in color, it would have been arguably a much different film and, in my opinion, less profound. Now ask yourself this question. What if No Country for Old Men was shot in black and white? Imagine Anton Chigurh, his menace, his ferocity, in stunning black and white.
How much?
69 cents.
And the gas?
Y'all getting any rain up your way?
What way would that be?
I seen you was from Dallas.
What business is it of yours? Where I'm from? Friendo?
I didn't mean nothing by it.
Didn't mean nothing.
Just passing the time. If you don't want to accept that, I don't know what else I can do for you. Will there be something else?
I don't know. Will there?
Is something wrong?
With what?
With anything.
Is that what you're asking me? Is there something wrong with anything?
Will there be anything else?
You already asked me that. What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss?
Sir?
The most you ever lost on a coin toss.
Would the film have been more effective? or not. It's your opinion. I would have loved to have seen it in black and white, a sort of cinema verite, and far more chilling, in my opinion. By the time you reach No Country for Old Men, however, that quiet erosion's given way to something harsher, hasn't it? The emptiness hasn't just settled in, it's been filled in by forces that don't care about morality at all. Where Bogdanovich's film shows a world where meaning is fading, the Coens show us a world where meaning may never have been there to begin with. You know, one film is like an elegy, and the other is like a reckoning, to me, anyways. And Sheriff Bell stands right at the dividing line. He feels like he belongs in the earlier film, Bogdanovich's film, in that older, slower world where people know each other, where times pass differently.
I'd see children walking the streets of our Texas towns with green hair, bones in their noses. I just flat out wouldn't have believed you.
Signs and wonders. But I think once you quit hearing sir and ma'am, rest is soon to follow.
Oh, it's the tide. It's the dismal tide. It is not the one thing.
Not the one thing.
Wouldn't it have been cool to see Sheriff Bell and Sam the Lion together in the pool hall? But he's trapped in this newer one, trying to make sense of something that refuses to be understood. In that way, he's not just a character in No Country for Old Men. He's almost a survivor of the last picture show, aged into a reality he no longer recognizes. So when you widen the lens, no pun intended, well, actually it is intended, you start to see it across other films too. Try these on for size. Badlands, Marty Sheen's film. The Grapes of Wrath, Henry Fonda's film. These are stories that still search for meaning even though the world resists it. But here in these two films especially, the trajectory becomes clear. From loss, we get absence. And then we reach something colder than both. And that's why it's hard for me to watch, because No Country for Old Men doesn't reassure me and many film viewers, I'm certain. It doesn't tell you that good wins or that evil loses. It just suggests that some things move through the world without explanation and without stopping. And all we can really do is notice when they pass. Compare and contrast these two films for yourself. What conclusions do you reach and why? Because they're talking about something very American that we exported, other than jazz, to the world. And that's the American West, the Western way of life. A mythology or reality? You be the judge. Till I see you next time, please leave behind a soft footprint. And by the way, how much do you want for the shirt? Class is dismissed.
And I think one of the things that makes No Country for Old Men stand out is that the entire movie is just one slice of time. I would argue that the movie could have just as easily started a day before it does and ended a few hours before it does, or vice versa, and it would have still been a compelling story. It starts when it does, and it ends when it does. And that, my friends, shows you the power of strong and memorable characters and why you think about the film long after the credits have rolled. You've been listening to the Razors Inc. podcast with Jonathan Farini. Be sure to check out Jonathan's collection of fiction at jonathanfarini.com. Also, look for Jonathan's latest short story, The Blue Binder, in which a young man with special needs is given a gift that is far more valuable than at first blush. The Blue Binder has just been published in the April edition of Borderless. You'll find it online at borderlessjournal.com. can also drop an email anytime to razorzincpodcast@gmail.com.